It's a bird. It's a plane. It's a dog. It's a Superman trailer. We're going to talk about the Superman trailer, guys, this today on Multiverse News. A special Superman trailer report and reaction. All that right after this. Welcome to Multiverse News, your source for information about all your favorite fictional universes. My name's Matthew Carroll, and with me today we got Haley Hobbs. What's going on, Haley?
Hello. Feeling very super today.
Ooh, me too. I got the shirt and everything. And Jay Sisson, what's happening, bud?
Yeah, excited to get together on Thursday. It's different for us, but we just had to get together and talk about this trailer. It's too exciting.
Yeah, for sure. And Jay Scotty St. Clair.
Faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive. These expressions have never been used to describe me, but I'm here.
I think we're all with you on that. Yeah, so we this is a big trailer. I was talking to my fiance earlier, and we were talking about. I was excited about the trailer, and she was trying to explain to her why I was excited about the trailer. I was like, this is the start of a universe that I will likely be following for like the next 15 years if things go well, like 15, 20 years. And this is the first look at that. And she's like, that is a kind of a big deal, isn't it? I was like, yeah. It's like, this is the first thing we'll know about the tone of this thing that we will be watching. Even if just this one movie is successful, they will make 8 in the DC universe before they give up, it'll go for a while.
It's momentous either way.
Don't put that Sonyverse stink on the DCU.
How dare you?
Yeah,
Superman is about hope.
Yeah, this is the anti-Craven. I watched Craven in theaters today, and now I watched this trailer. So let's just dive right in. Who wants to take it first? What do you guys think of the trailer?
James Gunn cooked. It was excellent. I mean, we'll get into more specifics, but just general, I loved the tone that I was afraid we were going to see a particular tone, which we've talked about on Multiverse News at length about James Gunn and James Gunning and how maybe that wouldn't exactly work for Superman. I really didn't see that. I saw what I wanted to see in this trailer. I got like weirdly emotional watching this trailer in certain spots. The music was fantastic. We got little tiny glimpses of these characters we've heard about. Not too much. There was basically no dialogue in the entire trailer, and there were these very quick hitting shots just showing different corners of the film. So I thought it worked in that it didn't really give anything away. I thought it was like color palette was great, like everybody looks great, like it just kind of flowed really well as a trailer. So I'm excited to talk about the specifics, but just overall just bird's eye view of the whole thing, I thought it was excellent.
Me too, man. Me too.
I know I'm always going hard on James Gunn and giving him a hard time. And there is an aspect of his creative personality that I don't jive with. But There is something he's good at doing, which is tugging at the heartstrings. And the 3 times I watched this trailer today, the very last shot that we see of Clark and Lois makes me tear up every single time. And so I do think that what we wanted, like Jay said, is what we're getting. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. What about you, Jay Scotty?
Yeah, in terms of a trailer, I'm right there with everybody else. This kind of did exactly what I wanted it to do. Jay, you said it kind of gave nothing away, and I agree with you, but we got so many characters on screen, so many locales, so many set pieces that while it did give nothing away, it gives us so much to speculate and talk about, and that is the hallmark of a great teaser, in my opinion. So yeah, I came away really impressed with this first look at Superman.
Me too. I echo everything all of you guys have said, and I guess we will get into the specifics here in a minute, but the tone is perfect. I cried. I watched it 5 times today, and I cried, I think, every time. Got choked up. James Gunn knows what he's doing to tug at the heartstrings, and just the kind of iconography he's using for Superman is just so good. One shot that gets me every friggin' time, and it's going to get me right now, is the little kid raising the flag and saying Superman. It's just like the idea that you'd have a being on the earth that's just being so heroic and protective of the world that a kid thinks, and he's probably right because it's in the movie, but like he thinks that he can just raise a flag 10 feet and go, Superman will come. He will show up. Like that's the kind of Superman we're getting, and I just think that's kind of symbol of hope that we're going to see. And it's just love that. I love it so much.
Yeah, and it gives off that vibe, like the way that Corn Sweat kind of portrays this character. And James Gunn talked about this a lot too. He was asked there was a press screening of this trailer on Monday, I believe, and James Gunn was asked a lot of questions, and a lot of quotes from those questions have made their way out with the trailer. And he spoke a lot about how he and Corn Sweat both talked at length about how they wanted to make sure that this character was the embodiment of the good that you want to see in others. That like when you see a person, you assume the best about them, not the worst, even if they're on the other side of the political aisle or the religious aisle or whatever, that you assume the best about people. And that was kind of the core of this film was that idea that is who this character is supposed to be. It's supposed to be someone who embodies that idea of lifting up your fellow man and hope and trying to protect at all costs and always seeing the good in people. And so you definitely, I think, see that vibe in this trailer, even with the way that you've got like the music up against the shots, and you got little glimpses of Clark and Lois, but then you've got his interaction with people who in some shots are not fond of him for whatever reason and are throwing things at him and all of that, and that wrestling of what does that mean as the most powerful thing that exists on Earth and not being accepted by the people, which is something that Snyder dealt a lot with too, I think. Well, like I really liked Man of Steel, but this was a very different tone than Man of Steel, but still that remains to me some of the best things that Snyder did, was exploring that relationship between you're the most powerful thing on the planet, and you could destroy everything if you wanted, but you choose to protect and provide and try to do the right thing, just even if it seems like the right thing would be the wrong thing, morally speaking, but still just that commitment to the right thing. And it seems like Gunn, just from his quotes at least that have come out all over the place in various trades and sites and interviews over the last couple of days, it seems like that really is his driving focus in trying to write this character.
I really like the idea you were talking about the idea of looking across at your fellow man and thinking the best of them and seeing the best in people, and not just that Superman would do that, but he would be an example to the world of like, this is what people are supposed to be like to each other, and so we can all see that little bit of that hero inside of each of us, and I just think that's just so needed right now. And I love what we're seeing. I really love the hopefulness of this trailer. And the dog, man, the dog. It's so cute. It's so perfect. It's so perfect. My fiance, who is not, I've talked about her on the casts before. She doesn't watch any geeky stuff, nothing. So like we just completely different media worlds. And she watched this and was like, just totally in. She's like, I didn't know superheroes had dogs. I'm in now.
Crypto is also a superhero.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, you bringing up the scene with Crypto, and that's how they chose to open the trailer. That really did strike a chord with me. The decision to showcase our Superman in such a vulnerable and defeated state, I just think is inherently interesting, and it takes me all the way back to the various iterations of Superman that we've had. You know, and people are going to compare this to the past iterations of Superman. Is just going to happen, and I've already seen a lot of comparisons to the Snyder outing, obviously, but I'm old enough to remember the marketing around Superman Returns, which was unfortunately directed by Bryan Singer, but was supposed to be a direct continuation of that Donner Reeves version of the character. And I remember the trailers for that. The big splashy moment was when you had a slow motion bullet hitting Superman's eyes and kind of imploding on impact against his eye. You don't have anything like that in this trailer, really. Sure, you get to see tons of spectacle, tons of characters, but in terms of like showcasing Superman as a badass, you don't really get it. And Jay, to your point, there's virtually no dialogue, but you get a really strong sense for where these characters are coming from and what the relationship dynamics are like. The few instances of Clark as Clark, he's just, Corn Sweat's doing it. He's got the kind of hunched shoulders, the tousled hair in his face, like has no confidence whatsoever. And yeah, we've got plenty to talk about here, but I'm getting goosebumps and getting welled up with this optimism all over again, thinking about the imagery on display here.
Mm-hmm. It's so funny. We each keep talking about a different thing, element of the trailer, and almost all of our little talks end on, it's just so hopeful. It's just keep going back to that. It's just everything in this is pointing in that direction, and I mean, I don't want to be negative here, but in thinking about it in the state of where the DC universe has been and the tone set by Snyder, I agree. There's some great moments, especially in the first Man of Steel, in that like idea that Superman is choosing not to be a god, but to be the best man he can be. And I love that element of Superman in all versions, but it kind of lost that. The DC universe sort of lost that thread, and it didn't feel hopeful for a lot of the last many movies. And this is just back to a place of hope that I can really, really get behind.
And it's funny that hope is clearly that was what Gunn wanted to portray, and that's what we all feel, and that's what the trailer did. But to, I think, your point, Scotty, in none of the trailer are we seeing Superman be successful in a way.
Sure.
We're seeing him in action, but he's beat down. He's in this crowd of people that don't like him. He's injured and bleeding at the beginning. I mean, it's a very interesting way of showing that his humanity is the thing that makes him hopeful, and even through all the adversity, we still end feeling that way. I think back to the first still that Gunn released of him kind of putting the boots on, and like the thing is happening outside the window, and that absolutely is the tone of the trailer. Like, he's pulling on the boots, like, gotta go do another thing, gotta go save the world again. Just hung up my cape, just got to put it back on. It's great. It was, the first time I watched it, I was like, okay, that was cool. And the second time I was like, oh, that was nice. And then this last time when I watched it just before we got on, I was like, okay, I get it.
It's reminded me of The Dark Knight, when Batman realizes like he needs to be a symbol instead of a crime fighter. He's gonna leave being Batman. He's gonna go be a symbol. But it's the opposite of that. It's Superman. The work of Superman is not just saving people, but giving people the hope to like see it in each other and see the world as a different kind of world, and try to be that example. And that idea of like putting on your boots every day and going to work to be a shining example of what a being can be, and how hard that would be to like maintain that level of like, being an example. That's an interesting story. And I don't know that I've ever really seen Superman that way. And to see a trailer, not even a movie, but a trailer highlight Superman in a way that I'm like, I get this character in a way that I grew up reading Superman comics. Like, he was my favorite character before I became more of a Marvel guy as like a teenager. Superman was the one Superman and Spider-Man, but Superman particularly, I would get as many books as I could. And this just made me feel differently about the character than I've ever felt before. It's amazing.
Yeah, a lot of you guys have talked about the duality in this trailer of like the Clark Kent and the Superman, and how these two personas are very distinct and very different. Like, they feel like different people. And that was something that really stood out to me upon watching this trailer a couple times, because I just feel like we haven't really seen that. I mean, Christopher Reeves, like, that was what he was famous for, was being able to really kind of almost personality swap between the heroic, like fly into the sky, all that type of stuff, and then turning into the, Scotty, I think you said like hunched over and hair in your face and all that type of stuff, Clark Kent. Cavill wasn't really that, and he never really had that like duality of Clark Kent and Superman. It was just kind of like a glasses on, glasses off type situation with Cavill.
For sure.
And again, it's like I'm a fan of Man of Steel. Like, I think it's a movie that holds up even now. But that was just a side of that character that we never really got from Cavill. And then you start roping in Batman and Justice League and all that. So to see that really on display here, that stood out to me big time, because that shows us that, Corn Sweat is really embracing this idea of duality here, of what does it mean to be Superman, but also be an average person and there's that shot of him walking through the crowd. He's much bigger than everybody else, and he's trying to not look out of place, but very much does look out of place. And what does that mean if
so
you're in
tall.
that position? Yeah, like it's like it's this strange sort of middle ground that he exists in, where he wants to be the normal reporter, but at the same time he wants to have a life, but then at the same time he has to essentially protect the entire planet. And how do you live both of those things and be a distinct person, I guess, in both of those personalities?
Yeah. And thinking about this idea of him trying to be that example or whatever, and then trying to have a normal life makes a lot more sense to me. In some ways, like the Clark Kent personality to me doesn't make as much sense. Like when you've got other heroes, it's like their dual personality or their dual lives make sense because one side might be more investigatory and one side's more superhero-y or something like that. But like with or like with Batman, it's like throw people off the scent. But if you're Superman, why do you need that normal life? And it's because he needs the normal life. The Clark Kent is like his life. That's who he is and who he wants to be when he doesn't have all the pressure of the world on his shoulders. And it's a great way of displaying this character. I'm loving it. I'm very excited. And the thing that I'm getting teary about his whole childhood is being raised by the Kents, and in the trailer we see him sitting on the farm, and I am so excited to see the relationship between him and Pa Kent. That's one of my favorite parts of every incarnation of Superman. The only part I hated about Man of Steel, but that's neither here nor there. Sorry, I'm not going to talk about the Snyderverse too much. But like I love the Pa Kent of it all. To me, that's the story of Superman. He is the god. He was sent here to be a god among men, and then like the humble Pa Kent taught him humility. And I think that's what I love about the Superman character, and like sort of the impact that Farmer has on his life and everything, and just taking him in and adopting him. It's just, I love that story. And so to see that that's going to be a part of this too really got me. That's one of the things that made me cry immediately. And like, it's such a small moment, but I just love seeing him put his arm around Clark.
Speaking of Snyderverse, I do hate that the first thing I thought when the opening scene of this trailer come on was the "Do you bleed?" or whatever. And like he's laying there with blood. I was like, oh gosh, it's there. It's on my brain.
Yeah. Matt, what you brought up about the scene there with Pa Kent, I did think it was interesting that we saw Clark with Pa and not with Ma Kent, because historically Ma is the one that outlives Pa, and that may still be on the table in this instance. Maybe this is a tender moment with Pa before Pa has his passing, but it does take me back to the beginning of the trailer again, when Superman has to call on Krypto to rescue him, and he says, "Take me home." And while I've talked about how we do get such a clear sense of the character and characters when it comes to home, I do find myself leaning towards the Kent farm in Smallville, but it's just like that begs so many questions. Is that the Fortress of Solitude? Is that Krypton? We don't really know what the origin of Krypto in this world is, but chances are he's probably from Krypton as well. Is it Lois potentially? Because again, we didn't get any dialogue from Lois, but again, just those steely exchanges, those lustful stares, those embraces that we do get. You do get the sense that like she is a pillar of support for him. Like Jay, you mentioned it. How does someone carry the weight of having to be responsible for the whole world? And Clark really does pour himself into Lois, and that's what's so great about their relationship, is they really are there for each other through thick and through thin. So I'm just really excited to get to see more of that dynamic for sure.
We all know so much of this story, and just through these few visuals, we're seeing so much of that story playing out. And I don't know how much we're putting on it versus how much is there, but it just feels like so much of the aspects of the Superman mythos that I truly love are on display here. And yeah, just Gunn knows what he's doing. Gunn knows these characters. Gunn knows how to make a great movie based in character. So
Shall we talk about something that's not great, which is Nathan Fillion's wig?
It's hilarious though. It's so funny.
I was like, oh, that's who that is.
It just seems like they're not going to pull any punches when it comes to Guy Gardner. Like we've talked at length on this show about the comics version of Guy Gardner. He is not a fan favorite in the comics, he's not always the most heroic of superheroes. So it seems like they're fully going to embrace that this guy is not good. I mean, just look at that expression on Nathan Fillion's face. He looks like he's smelled the worst thing that he possibly could, just that stank face. And then if you do, if you slow the trailer down enough to do a frame by frame, it looks like when he has the green power emit from his ring, he's doing that to like block an entrance from Superman. It looks like Superman wants to exit the scenario, and he's like, "No, I've got words for you. Like we're gonna hash this out or something." That's my take anyway.
I took it as he was he puts up like a full wall of green. I thought he was like getting some privacy for them. Like he's like, it looked to me like he was like shutting the world out so they could have a conversation or something. Like
I could see that.
Yeah. As we've covered this film over the last year and the casting has come out for it, it's a conversation we've had a lot is, man, this film feels like it's getting a little bit crowded. You have Mr. Terrific and Hawkgirl and Guy Gardner, and we didn't even see a shot of Metamorpho unless I missed him in this trailer.
I think we did. There's a close-up of like a wrinkled face that I think is Metamorpho, but I could be wrong.
I remember that face. I didn't think that was him, but yeah, you might be right. I have to go back and watch it again. But that was a conversation we had a lot. Was like every time it was like, oh man, this guy's in it, that guy's in it. Like it was just like more and more and more. And we were expressing concern that the movie would get very crowded, which sometimes James Gunn movies can do. They can get a little crowded, and they try to focus a little bit too much on the gang instead of just like a person. But this trailer, on the reverse side of that, did not feel like that. It felt very Superman focused. These felt very much, to me at least, in the small shots we got, they did feel like true supporting characters. Like we didn't really see like a lot of teaming up and talking between them and that type of stuff, which I think is good. I mean, again, it's a very small snippet, but tone-wise, it does seem that was a fear of mine, is that we just wouldn't feel like a Superman movie. It would feel very crowded. It would feel like we were doing a lot of work for a lot of characters and a lot of spaces. But that being said, this did not feel like that at all. It did not feel crowded.
I felt like that the first time I watched it, but the times after that, I was like, okay, this isn't so. But the first time I was like, oh my gosh, this person. And so, but then I harken back and I was like, okay, there is going to be a lot of characters in this movie and it'll be fine, I think.
Well, I think it's two things you guys have talked about, which is like how crowded the movie is with characters and how in this trailer we don't see Superman being a badass, which I think is true. But we also do see some really badass shots of like Hawkgirl, of even Luthor, just like with the gun and like that bridge, and there's some really badass shots, and I think that's part of why some of those shots are there, because I don't think they're either not wanting to give away a lot of Superman's badassery, or they're wanting to really like make him seem really human, and they're giving all the other characters kind of hero moments in this trailer to sort of show off this is still a cool superhero movie. There is one shot of Superman in battle. There's probably a couple. Mostly he's just saving people. He saves that girl with the wind chimes hitting his back or something. I don't know what that is.
But that was such a cool shot. Yeah,
such a cool shot. Such a cool shot. I don't know what those are, but they're big orange
big
wind
water
chimes.
barrels like on the highway. That's what it made me think
industrial
of.
piping, something like that.
Okay, yeah. I love that shot. There's another shot though where he's fighting the big like dragon, and I love it because it is the most diminutive you could see Superman. It's like him versus Godzilla, and the shot is from like forever away. He's just tiny little speck on the screen getting enveloped by flame, and it's like that's one of the only like battle shots we get of Superman. I'm sure there's going to be great battle shots of Superman in this movie, but this trailer did not want to showcase that yet.
I bet we get more badass in the next, like the more full trailer. Even though at 2.5 almost minutes, this was a pretty long teaser.
Yeah, more dialogue and more like story beats, and for sure.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Luthor, because this is our first look at Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor as well, and the choice to go with Luthor Corps over Lex Corps. I am by no means a comics historian, so I don't know if Luthor Corps is the tradition and LexCorp has been a product of more recent years, but I, for one, am more familiar with LexCorp over Luthor Corps. So interesting choice there. But, again, not getting to spend all that much time with these characters in these trailers, I am taking the comments from the many comments from James Gunn and using them as a little bit of context. But we know that Nicholas Hoult also auditioned for Superman before he was cast as Lex Luthor. So we've been talking about that humanity that we've been seeing on display for Superman. So that's one thing that I'm really encouraged by, that quick glimpse at Nicholas Hoult, just that frustrated, twisted expression on his face. Really, I'm already bought into like this version of Lex. The thing that is the thorn in his side about Superman is here he is, this self-made man that has a corporation named in his honor, and he'll still never be good as this guy that just has, natural abilities and given talents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the look of the characters is great, and I wanted to touch on that because the costumes look great. I mean, they were real quick snapshots, but there was a lot of discourse online whenever you started to see set photos come out of like, look how bad this looks, look how cheap this looks, look at this, look at that. And we know that first photo that was released of Superman, we talked about, it's cool, we're intrigued, but like, what's kind of going on with the costume? The colors kind of look a little, like we were kind of talking about that too. And there's been a lot of conversation around that, especially online, around set photos. And I think this has just been a reminder that and people just need to be reminded about this all the time, that like you never really judge a movie based on set photos. Like there's so much post-production that's done on costumes and looks and all of that, and you can really see it here. Like this trailer looked good, and there's been some conversation about trailers and how quickly they come out, and sometimes Marvel's been at the center of that conversation about, oh, this trailer the CGI is looking real whack in this trailer. They got some work to do before this thing comes out,
right.
And that's a frustrating conversation to have. And so now this clearly, the time has been spent, right? Like it did not look bad. Like the CGI looked good. It looked crisp. It looked clear. Costumes looked very well designed. And I think that's what helped a lot for the conversation around this. I mean, this thing was trending all day, number one on all the social media sites. I think a lot of it just has to do with it looks good. It looks clean and crisp, and it looks like it has the budget and it has the characters, and it looks like it looks like the movie's done, and that's encouraging.
I think you talk about these colors they're using, and I think part of the reason it looked cheap is for a long time, the big budget movies, I mean, going all the way back to, the X-Men movie of 2000 or whatever, like they really tried to mute the colors, and they've been doing that for a long time. And I think Marvel has been better about it. I think Shang-Chi is a good example of the colors being less muted. But even in Marvel, like the sort of Civil War to Endgame run starts to get that sort of gray palette to all the coloration of the movies, which I think works for the Russo's style, but like it does get a little old at times.
Yeah,
there's less color popping, and I think that normally where we see these colors come out is shows like the CW and like those kinds of worlds. They're a lot more willing to place a bet on like, let's make the purple character purple and let's make the yellow character yellow, and they're not having a fear of that here. These characters are comic accurate, not necessarily exactly comic accurate, but the coloration is comics accurate, and I love that.
Well, I think we've talked before about the DC characters, the differences between DC and Marvel characters, and that Marvel's supposed to be that whole world outside your window thing, and so having more realistic costumes sometimes works for that. But like we talked about with Clayface, we are in Gods and Monsters, and I don't expect it to be realistic. I expect it to be superhero, and that's what we're getting.
Yep. Well, this just looks great. Looks really, really great. The sexy scenes are sexy. Just so sexy. So much sexy on display.
But a lot of heart, too.
I guess. I was distracted.
Seriously, that scene of Lois like grabbing him, that's the thing that gets me. Not her.
I know. Seriously, that scene with Lois grabbing him.
He's like, got me too, but in a different way.
Not hard. Come on.
Sorry.
Put an explicit rating on this one, you guys. Her grabbing him for a hug is very like, I mean, as somebody who's been in a relationship for 15 years, like, I felt that moment a lot. I've had that moment with my spouse. And so that's why it gets me every time. It gets me just now thinking about it. Like, I'm going to love their dynamic. I just know that.
Yeah, absolutely. Gonna make me cry, Haley.
Sorry, you made me cry. All of you made me cry.
Yeah, this trailer's gotten us this tonight. Yeah, so good. We mentioned Green Lantern. Hawk Girl looks awesome. Mr. Terrific looks awesome. Yeah, just so many
Guy
cool
Gardner
things.
looks weird.
Well,
Yeah,
in a good
awesome
way.
in his
Like
way.
he looks like a weirdo, but like in a great way.
like exactly the kind of like jackass role that Nathan Fillion's good at. Reminds me a lot of his role in Guardians 3.
Yeah.
Which was so
right,
funny.
good call. Yeah.
Yeah. Another James Gunn using him as a jerk.
We talked about it a couple of times. The very first image that we got where Superman was pulling on his boots in that apartment, and we had that orb of light on display in the background.
Mm-hmm.
We saw that in a couple of shots in this trailer, and it could be I wasn't paying close enough attention, but I got the sense that they weren't really all that concerned about that. I was like, is this just a fixture of the Metropolis like skyline or something like that, or it was focused on Lois and Clark there, so maybe this was like a goodbye between them before he had to go deal with that thing. But I didn't notice a lot of like destruction happening around it, but I might have just missed that.
It looks to me like something like them saying goodbye, or it's in two different shots, and it looks like there's just some craziness going on outside, and he's like, I've got to go, and she's like, but first we have to say goodbye. Like, this is scary. It looks like a really scary moment to me, like something he's going off to a battle he may not come back from or something.
It's kind of like that elevated end of Spider-Man 2 moment, the go get 'em tiger thing, but this seems more dire, probably.
Yeah.
Maybe. We'll find out.
Yeah.
Who's the sad robot on the ground?
I don't know.
Do we know? Is
Was
it
that in
Metallo, maybe?
The Fortress of Solitude?
Yeah, it's inside the Fortress of Solitude, and that makes me think it's probably something from Krypton, and that makes me wonder if like he's losing some of the like whatever, some of his connection to Krypton there. Like maybe there's a robot, maybe he has like a robot inside the cave that he's able to talk to about Krypton or something in
like
that
it's
moment.
The caretaker or something, and then it gets
something like that.
ripped away from him.
Don't we know that
really
Ultraman wasn't Ultraman cast? Because that would be my first guess, but I don't know if that was just something that was in passing or something that was official. Trying to do some subsequent research right now.
Remember.
I don't
Doesn't
know.
ring any bells, but that doesn't mean anything because there's 85 characters in this movie. So
Okay, yeah, it doesn't look like there's anything official, so maybe I'm wrong about that. But I'm trying to tread very lightly about Creature Commandos spoilers as well. But yeah, given the fact that it's an android, humanoid-esque robot there on the ground, I have not seen the 4th episode of Creature Commandos, but in the 3rd episode of Creature Commandos, there are some hints at the history of the DCU that could, give us some insight into what the future or the present day of the DCU looks like. And I will say I would not be all that surprised if robot denizens like that are commonplace.
Huh. That's cool. That's very cool. Yeah, the whole alternate history part of this, and like how it's going to be just a very different world, and all these superheroes just already exist. Like, it's a very different kind of launch of a franchise, and I'm here for it. I'm so here for it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, anybody else have any major thoughts about the Superman trailer?
I don't think
at this
so.
time, but I'm sure I will have more later.
Well, we just wanted to get in the feed and talk about it ASAP, because this is like we said, going to be a big deal. This tone is going to be living in our lives for a long time, us DC fans. And so very excited to see where this goes. It's a great start. Follow us at all the normal places, and we will be back very soon with more multiverse news. Peace.
You stay classy and look up multiverse.
Hey, thanks for listening to Multiverse News, or watching it, or whatever you're doing, eyeballs or ear holes, whichever thing. We do this show every week, and we appreciate you listening. StrandedPanda.com is where you can find all of our podcasts, and thank you for listening. Check us out wherever you get podcasts. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit the little bell icon, whatever you have on whatever service you're doing. Rate us, like us. We're really thirsty. That's what I'm saying.